works. So just as a reminder, if you definitely live in Saginaw Township, it is your day to vote. So get out there and cast your ballot. If you have questions, always go online, take a peek, and you can look with your local county clerk, your township, to see if you have an election. Not a lot today in that off year, but there definitely are a few. If someone's driving through and you live in the city of Detroit, you have an election today for mayor. So we have a few across Michigan, maybe a little bit bigger on the national stage with some key races. And Jonathan Dent, I don't know how he does this, but it's basically Art timed it so that he's never here on election day ever again. Is that his new move?
I think it's either a coincidence or very calculated.
You know what? It's a really convenient, calculated coincidence. For you guys last year when the presidential election took place, Art was conveniently not here, and I fielded calls the day after the election.
I mean, when you're 82 and you've been doing this for how long, this is the time of year to take off.
You know what? I totally agree. But Jonathan Dent, I think you should host the show in 2028, the day after Election Day. I think we should just put that in writing today, that that's going to be
Just
all you.
Put me in the hot seat there.
Put you in the hot seat.
The hottest
Let you
seat
take the call.
in radio.
So I am joined today, and I specifically asked my good friend Jimmy Green to come in. Good morning, Jimmy.
Good morning, Matt. Jonathan.
Good morning.
There's no one I like to discuss politics with more than Jimmy. We oftentimes see things differently. Mm-hmm. We found that we more often than not see things the same. But, we're 1 year into, almost a year into the Trump administration. We're a year away from midterms. It is an odd day because there are a few elections that are definitely being looked at in Virginia, which I don't think is going to be much of a race. New Jersey, which looks like it's more of a race. Mm-hmm. The New York mayoral, etc. But, Jimmy, they say that all politics is local. So I want to start local with
Not anymore. No, I mean that sincerely. I think local politics, just like state politics, has become nationalized. That never used to be the case before. I think it was always bottom up. Today, I think it's top down. I've never seen more local elections influenced by what's happening nationally, and I think a lot of that has to do, with the Trump movement and then the anti-Trump movement. And so the state and local races all seem to take their cue from what's happening at that top level. I've never seen anything like that.
I agree with you, but I think the Saginaw Township millage is truly a local race today.
Yeah, it is. I would agree with that. I think it's something like that. You're absolutely right. I think more candidate issues are more top-down.
100%.
But I think when you talk about bond issues, millage issues, yeah, those are definitely
totally
personalized, local. Yeah, no question.
So let's talk about this one. I want to kind of frame it with a little bit of, I guess, reflection on what I've observed through the years. So my son loved sports, and he played quite a bit of travel basketball and travel soccer, which mean that we traveled all across the state. And I remember, Jimmy, we went over to East Kentwood. There was a basketball tournament, and we walk into the high school, and we're like, okay, we're looking for his gym. And the gentleman goes, oh, I'm sorry, guys, you're in the freshman building. And I said, the freshman building? Where's the freshman building? And they were like, yeah, it's past the Performing Arts Center. Go outside past the turf field. You'll go past the Equestrian Center and the polo field. And you're like, what is happening? Now, East Kentwood's one of the biggest schools in the state, but I want to frame it this way. Their facilities mirror those of a small college. It's absolutely gorgeous. They have everything you want. In an area that some might contend is a little more conservative leaning. So here's my question. Why on the west side of the state, where it's a little bit more conservative Republican, and folks pay attention to taxes very closely, are they voting for school millage after school millage after school millage? But on the east side of the state, once I hit east of 127, where the state can look a little bit more progressive, a little bit more democratic, communities there are voting down school millage after school millage after school millage, and it seems counter to me. What's your take on what's going on there?
I think it's kind of a cultural thing, and I think it's how you view how people spend money. I spent a lot of time on the west side of the state, a lot of time, especially in my former role. Certainly the economics are a little bit greater there, but even how they view how they spend money is different than here. we look at millages and bond issues as sort of it's going to cost me. On the west side of the state, they look at what it's going to return for me. So think about that for a minute. Their dollar is a return on investment attitude. Our dollars is what is it going to cost me and what do I have to give up to do that? They invest, we spend. Think about that. Think about that term. So we look at our dollar as an expense. They look at their dollar as an investment. And I see that time and time again, even when I looked at all the social media rhetoric in regards to how much people were going to spend. Very little of that was translated into, yeah, but what are we going to get in return for it?
So I'm going to ask you just straight up, where do you stand on the Saginaw Township schools millage today?
It's a necessary yes. Again, schools aren't self-healing, no different than airports or roads or anything else for that matter that we spend money on. The return is safety. The return is innovation. The return is, we're talking about bringing people into this state or bringing people into the township. You show me an economic study that demonstrates failing schools bring businesses or bring residents. I will suggest that is a fallacy. It just doesn't happen. The economic conditions of a township are centered around the school districts. And those schools, quite frankly, have been in existence since the 60s. And I think people forget the history of that because, first of all, in Saginaw Township, Eisenhower and MacArthur were merged into Heritage and then White Pine. So people tend to view them as that was the build. No, they were already in existence. So it's almost like they restarted the build year when they were 10, 15 years older than when they became White Pine and Heritage.
So when they did that, and I looked at Heritage, even at the time I thought, wow, Heritage is kind of an older building for being a brand new school. And that's when it started in
that's
the
my
80s.
Point, right.
Like, so you're 30 to 40 years later. These are incredibly old buildings, and I sit on a school board, and I don't think folks have any idea. If I just told you what the cost of LED lighting for one school district is in terms of your buildings, auditoriums, gyms, football fields, it's in the millions and millions and millions of dollars.
We just went through this with the Memorial Cup at the Dow Event Center.
So
replacing that lighting. And now imagine elementary schools, high schools, middle schools. You times that by 10, 20. It is an expensive venture, no question about it.
But the things you're talking,
but it's not going to get better. That's my whole point. No matter whether you're for it or against it, the school is the school, the age is the age, and whatever is decaying will not self-heal. And so, absent new, I'm just asking people, then what? Do we wait for it to crumble? Do we wait for it to fall? That's my only question. Is okay. I get it. I don't want to spend any more money. I wouldn't encourage anybody to spend more money for nothing. But absent that, what are you going to do to fix what is ultimately failing?
So let's have the discussion. Absent that, let's say that, it keeps getting voted down, right? And I don't know what to think is going to happen today. So you vote it down, and they come back again with something less, and they vote it down. And people come in, and they start looking at these schools that are antiquated, dilapidated, falling apart. Here's what happens. You know as well as I do.
Yeah.
Suddenly more kids are at Freeland. More
Swan
kids
Valley.
are at Frankenmuth, families. And like Freeland doesn't take school of choice. People will literally pick up and move into that district, right? Here's one for you. Hey, Saginaw United is
That's a beautiful
gorgeous campus and
Beautiful
school.
campus.
We're going to come back into the city. Like, I just don't understand. And this, take Saginaw Township out of it. Any school district east of 127. Why they keep voting no. I don't understand how you build community if you don't invest in K-12 education. The two they go hand in hand. If you want a great community, you have to have great public schools. I'll use my friends in Midland as a great example. Midland prides itself on great public schools, right?
Yeah.
So for years, that's been their thing, and they invest and they do. But even they recently in Midland, and, that was a pretty hardy bond. It went down in straight flames, right?
Yeah.
So voters east of 127 are asking for something different. They don't, like you said, they see it as an expense. Do you think at some point they kind of go, wait a minute, we are losing here. We do need to keep up with the Joneses. Like, do people realize in the Great Lakes Bay region that the absolute best school right now in terms of actual facility and body is Saginaw Public Schools?
Yeah. Look, here's the deal. And again, it goes right back to what you suggested and what I commented on earlier. This is not going to change. And to me, if it goes down tonight, They have to come back. Again, when something is falling, you have no choice and you have no money to fix what is failing. You have to continue to go back. That's what advocacy is, quite frankly. And I don't know a better advocate than the school district and their administrators and their board for their kids. So, what do you do? If it goes down, do you say, oh, gee, it wasn't important anyway? Or, gee, the roof isn't decaying, or the floors aren't falling apart, or the walls aren't, the paint isn't peeling? No, that is a reality that's going to face them tomorrow and every day after that until it gets better. So there's just no other way around that. There are some arguments you can make about things, but in this particular case, it's just going to get worse. And if you took Saginaw Township off of it and called it any other school district, it is just going to get worse. That is a common sense reality that, again, you can make an argument against it, but it doesn't change that fact.
So we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to tie that into property taxes and see what you think about escalating property taxes and how that may be impacting these millages after these messages.
Gotta go.
Welcome back to The Art Lewis Show. The Art Lewis Show is presented by Westside Decorating Center. Visit them at 5789 State Street in Saginaw or online at westsidedecoratingcenter.com. So it's Matt Flan filling in for Art here this week as he's off on vacation. And it is Election Day as a reminder, so if you weren't listening during the first segment and you're just hearing us, double check that you have an election or not. I can tell you for sure, Saginaw Township, you do. Get out there and vote. But I'm here with Jimmy Green, and we're talking about kind of local elections to start and millages. And so I have a theory. I want to see what you think. So I believe on the east side of 127, the population's much older. You have some of the oldest communities that are in the state of Michigan, Bay County, Saginaw, they're older communities. Because they're older communities, two things are happening right now in our region. One, the elder community doesn't have kids. So they're not as hip to pay for the schools because it's in their mind. They're like, okay, I've been there, done that. I don't have kids going through anymore. My grandkids live in Scarsdale. They live in Austin, Texas. I don't have to worry about this anymore. So I think we're getting some no votes because the older population who is on fixed income and feels like it will be damaging to them. But the other is property taxes that are, kind of skyrocketing if you talk to a lot of people. I know it's a hard conversation, but I can give you an example where I live. They seem to keep going up by that 5% every year. It's that cap, right? But you look and it's hitting the cap year after year, which you're like, okay, 5%. But 5% over 7 years is 35%. Or if you go and you buy that home that had the old tax structure, the township then comes in and goes, oh, no, the home's now worth X, and the taxes increase dramatically. But I kind of have this theory that people feel that maybe they're getting property taxed to death right now. And again, if you're older and you're hit by both of those and you see someone come to you for new taxes, man, I don't care if it's a mosquito or a school building or a firefighter. We saw it recently in the middle of the state in Gratiot County. Sheriff, nope, thank you. We don't want to pay for that. And they had to let go all of their sheriffs, right? So the question I have for you is, how much do you think age and property taxes are causing millages on the east side of the state to go down?
Well, listen, that's funny you should say that, because when you talk about aging populations and then you talk about where young people are, the question you have to ask yourself is, where are young people going? So when you look at our young people today, talk to them about Grand Rapids. Talk to them about the west side of the state. Talk to them about places down in southeast Detroit, or even talk to them about Detroit. a lot of our younger, we are aging. It's because that aging population isn't going anywhere, but our younger population is. So the question is why, where, especially young families in particular. You worked with Ken Horn for a lot of years about this 40K, trying to get younger people here. But don't think for one moment they don't look for schools. This is where I need to make sure your listeners understand. I am never going to fault somebody for being overly concerned about property taxes and what it does to their checkbook. Never. I get it. Not at all. I think sometimes, you can have two rights. In this particular case, you could be right about being concerned about property taxes and what it costs you in your checkbook. And then you also could be right about schools that are crumbling and what impact it has on your property values. It does in many respects. As people move out, property values go down. We've seen this play out time and time again, not just here in Michigan, I mean all over the country. That is a formula that always seems to exist. As people move out, property values go down. Why do people move out? Well, sometimes it is younger families trying to find better. You brought it up. People move to Freeland. They move out to the Shields area, Swan Valley. Not only that, but teachers do as well. So there's cause and effect. And I always, when you're advocating so strongly for something, it does not diminish, nor does it demean or disrespect people who are opposed to it. But it doesn't change the fact of the advocacy. In this particular case, the advocacy is we need to do something about Saginaw Township schools. The property tax issue is much bigger than me and you. It is a legislative issue. That's something that I think Republicans and Democrats pay. So at some point, maybe, my God, if we could get back to having compromise and moderation and bipartisanship, we might be able to do something about property taxes. But in the meantime, the school is failing.
So let's take a radical right turn. How's Donald Trump doing today, Jimmy? What is your current take on Donald Trump?
Do something like that.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Hard right turn. How's the president doing today?
That's one of those issues that I actually am independent on. I am. I think if I answer, I think the question is, what is he doing good or bad on? Because I think Donald Trump is not a broad president. He is a singular issue president. And what I mean by that is, when you want to know how Donald Trump is doing, you almost have to go to the issue. Like, you can't say good or bad. You have to go to the issue, because there's some things he's doing good at, even though he's the worst messenger that's ever been in the White House.
So I love what you're saying. So tell me right now. Give me an example of something good that he's doing in your mind.
I think no question in my mind that the border needed to be checked. And he's done a fabulous job at checking the border, at, again, addressing immigration that was an issue. Now, this is the flip side of it. How he's doing it, you can start getting into the weeds. But the broad issue itself is, should the border be checked? Should we have more legal immigration? Yes. Tariffs, terrible. Terrible in many respects. But again, tariffs are not a short-term thing. Tariffs are a long-term thing. So in the short term, he's doing god-awful. I mean, you can ask anybody else. Now, this goes back to that vicious circle, right? You talk about property taxes going up 5%. Look at inflation. Look at the result of tariffs. So now I've got not only a 5% property tax, I'm paying more for bread, butter, milk. I'm paying more for clothing. I'm paying more for tickets. I'm paying more for everything. So the 5% property tax you talked about is elevated simply because everything's coming out of my checkbook, right? So I think he's doing terrible that way. I think as a world leader, I kind of like the fact that he's put a line in the sand. We can question about whether or not that's going to be effective or not, but I think he's certainly taking America's interests at heart overseas. Now, we'll have to see how that plays out later. But I think domestically, I don't think he's doing as well as he's doing overseas. So that's issue by issue by issue.
We're going to take another break. When we come back, I'll tell you what I think he's doing well. And let's talk about where he's got some room to improve after these messages.
It's a joy to watch your kids grow.
That I answer the same question of what do I think he's doing well, but it's going to have that but to it. I'll give you an example.
It always does.
I am thrilled that a president is saying, you know what, enough of drugs and fentanyl and things coming across and killing our people. Mm-hmm. Let's go after the bad guys on this, okay? I think that's great. Just so we're clear, because people don't think that folks can do this. I'm a Democrat. I'm telling you something positive that I think the president's doing.
Right.
I like that he's going after the root cause of drugs. I would like our people in this country to stop dying from unnecessary drug overdoses. Totally agree. But how are we doing this? Is it right to just, oh, look, there's a boat full of suspected people, I guess. No due process, just boom, you blow them. Like, I often wonder, don't we have the ability to just go and capture these people and then figure out the facts of who they are, where they're coming from, rather than just blowing them up? Or even going to Venezuela, it is not necessarily the main country where drugs are coming in from that are a problem. Frankly, China is a problem. Mexico is a problem. Colombia is a problem. Why did we pick Venezuela? Which then kind of throws a few red flags and some question marks up about, is this about Maduro? Is this about oil? Other things come in. But I generally, when he said, I'm actually going to go after the cartels and really start fighting the folks that are at the root of the drug problem, totally for that. I think that makes sense. I didn't understand for years why we let these groups get so powerful inside their countries and why we didn't force these countries to start cracking down, because it is impacting us, right? So I like that, but I have questions about how he's doing it.
I don't know, because, this is where it's weird. Like, I don't blame Donald Trump for doing what Donald Trump does, because we are set up as a republic and in a democracy to check and balance the power of the presidency. So to me, everything he does is designed to do exactly that. And the checks and balances in this country have gone by the wayside. I mean, there was a point where even under former Republican presidents, there was a Speaker of the House or Senate Majority Leader that went, no, that you don't get to do that. That's absent today. So everything he does is endorsed and enabled. So he's going to continue to press the envelope. You got to remember, this isn't a guy who came up through the ranks. A lot of our presidents, they were mayors or governors or senators or congresspeople. They knew the system. Donald Trump doesn't know the system. He never has. So he's going to check how far he can push his power. And our balances today, and everything that goes right up to the Supreme Court, they've come back and said, well, that's under the guise of presidential powers. So he's going to continue to do what he does. So I think you and I have lived long enough where we expect that this is supposed to be different. Well, it used to be, except now he's done nothing illegal. And if you remember right, before he even got elected, the Supreme Court came back and said, which at that time President Biden said might be a catch-22, was that he could push that envelope even further if it was within the purview of presidential action. Attacking boats, presidential action, how are you going to define that? How are you going to discern that?
It's slippery slope.
There you go.
No question.
Absolutely.
So now I'm going to take us on a massive left turn.
Okay.
So Republicans, I totally understand. I know what they think, why they think. Totally get it. There's not a question in my mind. Democrats, on the other hand, are an interesting breed.
Yeah.
I don't quite know what they think sometimes. And people talk about a fractured Republican Party, kind of with classic conservatives and kind of the Trump movement.
Yeah, but they all vote the same way.
They do.
So
Democrats, though, on the other hand.
Doesn't really matter.
So Democrats get very upset with Trump, and I get frustrated because I kind of want to just hand him a mirror and go, look in this. Your issue is yourself. Number one, you lack a message. You lack a cohesive message and a framework and a plan for America that resonates with voters. You don't have that. That's problem number one. Number two, your messengers are the wrong people. The people giving this message nationally aren't resonating with people. How much of this do you think is just, Democrats, you're not on your game. You have bad candidates. You have a bad message. You have no message. And pretty much your message is, I don't like that guy. And voters are savvy enough to go, that's not good enough.
That's a funny.
Do you think that's the problem of Democrats?
It's funny you should say that, because I had this discussion with somebody. I think Democrats have the best candidates. I think their messaging is terrible, though. And let me give you an example of that. Can you find, and this is not a Trump derangement syndrome thing, can you find a worse candidate in our history than Donald Trump?
No.
Who got elected twice? So it's not a candidate thing. It is not. You're about ready to elect a socialist mayor of the largest city in this country, how many people do you think are going to pile on? Now, if I'm a Republican, and I used to be, I'm going to run against that. I'm going to say, hey, guess what's coming to your city next? Guess what's coming to your city next? Candidate? Nobody cares about candidates, not when the message is socialism or bordering on communism, which is exactly the way that's going to be framed. This country now is moderate. It is. They don't like extremes. Donald Trump is not extreme. Say what you will. He is not extreme. I mean, he's an enigma. Don't get me wrong. He is not extreme. But when you start talking about issues, and you look, I mean, when's the last time you've seen Donald Trump talk about abortion? Some of the most hotly contentious issues we used to talk about. He doesn't talk about
Just
those
not
things.
his style.
No, not at all. Why? Because people are tired of it. People don't want to talk about that anymore. But when you look at where Democrats, they're still fighting fights that have already been won, that already been fought, and this guy is just pushing forward on new agendas. And Democrats keep talking about the same old things. It ain't going to work.
So, Jimmy, we're going to take one more break. It's shocking that 47 minutes went this fast here this hour, but it did. We'll be back after these messages.
It's almost here. Associates.
Welcome back to the Art Lewis Show. It's Matt Flan here with Jimmy Green, and we're talking politics here on Election Day in Michigan. Jimmy, so one of my favorite things to do of late seems to be complain about my own party, the Democrats, and their lack of a message and lack of things that are going on. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you a couple, I'm going to ask it first this way.
Sure.
Do you think today is in any way, normally this odd year election when they take place is a referendum on the White House and on Trump? Do you think today's a referendum at all or not at all today?
No, not at all.
Doesn't have that feel, does it?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Virginia's not even a race.
No.
The Democrats going to win Virginia real easily, and I think that's much more due to really bad Republican candidates and bad campaigns. New Jersey, they say, is tightening. I don't know if I buy it, but a Democrat or neither party has won 3 straight elections in New Jersey since 1961.
But the only reason New Jersey's tight is because the Democratic governor is their own worst enemy.
Correct.
The candidate is their own worst enemy. It's not because the Republican candidate was so great or carrying the MAGA endorsement. I think it's almost kind of a self-implosion, if you will.
Sure, but it's not going to be one of those
indicative.
days tonight at midnight, and they go, "Oh, and it was a referendum on the president."
Yeah. No. Somebody will try to make it that way, but it won't be.
Yeah, of course. But that does take us in the midterms, which are now, 1 year from today, basically.
I know.
Michigan is an interesting state in that you don't see this often because of how the different people that are in office are holding. Mm-hmm. But you've had a Democrat for 2 terms, which historically means that in Michigan we windshield wiper back in the other direction.
Absolutely.
But normally what happens in Michigan is whatever party the president is, that windshield's back in the other direction.
Right.
So something has to break. That can't be the same.
Yeah.
Then on top of it, you have a weird field with, an independent like Mike Duggan, the mayor of Detroit, running in the middle of this, who, depending on who you talk to, some people say, well, he's a Republican. Some people say, well, he's a Democrat. And it seems to be...
Which makes him a perfect independent.
He's completely an independent on this. Give us your early projection on the 2026 election in Michigan. What do you expect?
Well, I think Duggan, like Ross Perot did in the Clinton and Bush era, is going to determine who's governor. And it may very well be him, quite frankly. I mean, if he holds this base and Michigan continues down the pathway that it is right now, look, this budget crisis had I tell you what, it ticked a lot of people off. This Republican-Democrat thing, and I think people are tired of the labels because the outcomes are terrible, even at the national level now, right? I mean, people are tired of hyper-partisanship, and Duggan is coming in and talking about issues, and I'll be very frank and transparent. I'm on board with Duggan. I used to be a former Republican. I left in 2015 at the Trump when Trump came in. I found myself, at a crossroads on issues, not party. I feel very comfortable being an independent, and I haven't had a really great independent candidate who I really believed was independent until Duggan. Now, when you look at the Democratic side of this, I mean, when Garland Gilchrist got Tlaib's endorsement, I thought he's toast. I mean, that's not an endorsement you want. In a primary, it just isn't. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to wind up having probably Jocelyn Benson, I would imagine. And then on the Republican side, I'm not sure. I think John James certainly is the front runner, but he's running so arrogantly right now. It'd be impossible for me to believe that the rest of the Republicans.
So when I'm
aren't
around
ready to get
John
him.
James in person, man, that dude is
He's charismatic.
charismatic
Yeah.
and thoughtful